Hey, family, welcome to episode two of the My Enrolled Agent Career podcast. I am your host, Timalyn Bowens, America's favorite EA. It just warms my heart so much that you've come back to tune in to episode two. Now, if this is the first episode that you've listened to, I'm going to encourage you to go back to last week's episode and check out what is an enrolled agent, because I talk about tax representation in a way that may be new to you and may give you some clarification, because the way I explained it has provided clarification for other tax professionals and even enrolled agents. So that might be something you want to check out if you haven't listened to it already. In this episode, I'm going to talk about my journey to becoming an enrolled agent. Now, I shared in last episode, yes, I do have a traditional accounting background because I had every intention in the world to become a CPA. And if you're not familiar, that is a certified public accountant. That is a professional who is licensed through their state to handle accounting work as well as tax work. But instead, God had other plans, and I became an enrolled agent who is licensed through the Internal Revenue Service. So I hold the highest credential that the IRS awards to tax professionals, which gives me unlimited representation rights in any IRS office all over the country. And I represent taxpayers all over the world who have US tax problems. Big difference. But I want to share how I got here, because a lot of people see what I do now and they see me on YouTube. This is my second podcast and they're like, I want to do what you do. But they have no idea what the journey looked like. So I'm young, you all. I'm only 35 years old. I had no idea what an enrolled agent was until I graduated from college, and I was looking for something a bit more fulfilling than the CPA exam. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the most brilliant tax minds that I know to date, some of the most brilliant tax minds that have mentored me personally, were and are CPAs. However, the way my life was going, the way God directed me, it wasn't a good fit for me right then. In the future, will I sit for the CPA exam? Maybe, probably. But I'm so glad that I found this designation. So it's 2025. Let's go all the way back to 1996. Now, some of you may know this from listening to other podcasts, or maybe you're in my mentorship community. I don't know. Maybe my email list. But I am a PK. So I don't really like calling children kids, but that stands for pastor's kid or preacher's kid, right? So my dad became the head pastor of the church that he pastors now in 1993. And check this out. At that time, I always say he inherited the church because he didn't start it. But when we got there, our family of five was bigger than the church membership. Okay. So we had the founding pastor's wife, who is in her 80s at the time. Then we had another church mother that went there. Her grandson brought her. The founding pastor's wife, her son brought her. So we got our four people, right? And we had a family of five. So we took a 2-hour commute every Sunday, every Wednesday for this church. And as the church began to grow, there were more people that were coming. Ministry was growing. People helped take care of my brothers and I during the service so my parents could do what they do. They could minister. My dad could preach. My mom's a musician, singer. They took care of those things. Well, in 1996, a couple joined our church after the death of one of their sisters. And those people were Deacon and Missionary Johnson. Now, love Missionary Johnson to life. Deacon Johnson, rest in peace, was always, always one of my biggest supporters. And I wish he could see me here today because he just doesn't know how much of my story he started off, right? So when they came to the church, in the church order that I grew up in, the deacons not only helped take care of the pastor and responsibilities around the church, but one of the primary things that they did was to take up the offering. So Deacon Johnson, I thought was like my best friend at the time. I didn't realize he was really just helping make sure that I was taken care of so my parents could focus on the service, right? He gave me the assignment of doing attendance, counting the people so we could track, which I didn't even realize at the time, were KPIs to see how many people were in attendance on Wednesdays versus Sundays, what we could do to improve. But then I also helped him count the offering. Now with this, we tracked this every Sunday and we had a book, which again, look how things happen, was a ledger. In this ledger, we tracked the attendance every Sunday. We looked at the time of year it was and compared that to the amount of people that were there and then how much was raised in the offering. Now, I wasn't even 10 years old yet. Remember, I'm only 35. So 96, 97, I'm only 7, 8 years old. I'm going through the motions, hanging out with Deacon Johnson. And some of the very first accounting concepts that I learned were with him. For example, in keeping up with the money in the ledger, right? Because if you have an accounting background, you know about ledgers, debits, and credits. I even remember writing it on the left side as a debit, right? So we'd have the date, the service, and then which side we wrote it on. Another thing that he taught me was accountability and transparency. When the money was out, he would never let me leave. And he asked me, he said, "Do you trust me?" Of course. He said, "And I trust you too. But if you are responsible for the money of an organization, you never want to be left alone with it without somebody else's eyes." He was teaching me checks and balances to help keep my name clear and his. So it's just fascinating to look almost 30 years back and be like, wow, all of this was instilled in me within a church setting. But one of the most important things that has stuck with me all my life, he said, "Timalyn, if we don't get the money right, your dad won't have a church to preach in." Because we have to understand how money works and how it fuels the ministry initiative. I took that in my head from that age and I said, wow, this is important. Money fuels ministries, it fuels initiatives, aspirations, dreams. So I even began to track my own money as an elementary school student and setting money aside and just the whole concept of giving and serving. And I'm so appreciative of that now. Not that my parents didn't teach me that, not that my grandparents didn't, but it was different coming from him. If he was here today, most definitely, there's no way I could thank him. I thank his wife now for sharing him with me. Because of that conversation, I've always held to me how important money is and to advocate for people who may not understand how important the money is to make sure that they can still chase their dreams and aspirations. Now, fast forward to high school. My junior year in high school, I took my first accounting class. And to my surprise, this is exactly what Deacon Johnson has taught me, right? I could do the T charts, the debits, the credits. I was fascinated. I remember talking to him about it, and he beamed like a proud dad, right? Because I told you he's always one of my biggest supporters and proud of me. Fast forward, I decide that I want to be an accounting major. Okay. And I promise we're still getting to the enrolled agent part. I wanted to be an accounting major. And going in, I wanted to go be an accounting major so I could become a business owner, so I could help small business owners understand their finances so they wouldn't fail and go out of business. So, from 7, 8 years old, making sure that the money was right, in a way, being an advocate to make sure that that small church could stay open. Fast forwarding to high school, having a better concept of the financials and saying, hey, I want to help small business owners so they can understand this too and focus on what they do so they won't fail. I get into college. Guess what? Deacon Johnson had even prepared me for college. That first accounting test, not as good as I wanted to do, but I did okay. And that's when I met Dr. Keith Richardson at Bellarmine. And guess what? He humbled me fast. I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, but I was still encouraged to keep trying, to keep pushing, because this accounting degree wasn't for me, it was for other people. Well, fast forward some more. I was involved with the Bellarmine University Accounting Association. Go Knights, always. I was not on the board, but I was the treasurer. So, what that responsibility gave me was direct connections to different accounting firms in the Louisville area. Before I even started my freshman year, Bellarmine gave me the opportunity to meet different partners at all four of the big four firms, right? Because I had that favor and opportunity, and people like Deacon Johnson praying for me, looking out for me, quite honestly. Okay, let's be transparent in that. This is all a God thing. All right. So, my the spring of my junior year of college, I had just got done interviewing. Sorry, fall of my junior year. I was going to take a semester off and work in an accounting firm. And there were different opportunities. I don't know if you guys remember 2008, maybe we were in a recession. So people were pretty much like, take whatever you can get. I had a connection with this firm, Crow Horwath, but the only positions they had were tax. Now, within the business school, there's a joke that the accounting students are the nerds. Within the accounting major, there's a joke. The tax people are really nerds. So I was like, man, I don't want to be that big nerd, right? So what happened with that, I ended up getting a full-time tax internship. And at this time, the firm had just expanded. And I thank God for that opportunity. Quite frankly, I do, because I had the experience to learn under some of the best tax minds in the industry at that time. I had the opportunity to learn and be mentored on someone else's dime and be paid for the work that I was doing. Now, looking back, now that I'm a little bit older, just a smidge seasoned, I can look back at that and see it, the favor and the privilege and all that that was. But I fell in love with tax law when I was there. I fell in love with the way that it worked like a puzzle, and we could make projections to help people save in taxes and all of the things. But I got distracted from starting my own business, and I got distracted from wanting to help small business owners not fail until the day in the Kroger parking lot. And I talk about this in episode 1 of the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast, how there was the lady in the Kroger parking lot. And to this day, I don't remember if it was $500 or if it was $1,500 that this lady owed. But She couldn't pay it to the IRS, and it seemed like the end of the world to her. And owing the IRS and not knowing what to do can seem like the end of the world to a lot of people. But in my 21-year-old mind, knowing how some of these things worked, I was like, all you have to do is this isn't that difficult. And that's when I felt convicted. After encountering this woman, and you can, like I said, check out that podcast episode for more details. I was going up the elevator at work and I said, but would that amount of money have messed up my brother? Would it had messed up a family member of mine? My parents had 2 children. No, they didn't have 2 in college at the time, but still, I was like, would that have messed up my parents? Like, how dare I sit up here high and mighty just because I'm working 70, 80 hours a week and living good to think that $500, $1,500 could potentially not cripple somebody. So, again, feeling convicted, how can I help people who need the help? Fast forward, like we keep doing in this story. I graduate. I did 3 busy seasons with Crow, and we went our separate ways. I married my handsome husband. I had a daughter, and I kept encountering people that had these tax problems. Now, I had fulfilled the requirements to sit for the CPA exam in the state of Kentucky, which is where I'm at in Louisville. And I said, I don't want to sit for an exam where only about 1/8 of it covers tax. I know I don't want to be an internal auditor. I know I don't want to audit financial statements. What can I do? So I was searching for that purpose where I could still be an advocate for business owners. I could still be an advocate for taxpayers. So I started my firm, Bowen's Tax and Bookkeeping Solutions at the time. I did bookkeeping, basic accounting, and tax preparation. And the people with the problems just kept coming. They kept coming. So as I began to explore different alternatives to the CPA exam that made more sense, that's when I found the EA credential. And again, I'm appreciative of the degree I got from Bellarmine. I'm appreciative of the time that I spent at Crow and the experience I had and the mentors and the traveling and the food, all the food. But I felt like there had been wasted time. I didn't realize there was a designation, the EA license, that would give me the opportunity to stand in the gap on behalf of small business owners, to stand in the gap of elderly taxpayers, to stand in the gap of any taxpayer, but especially those that I was passionate about helping and represent them before the IRS. That's how I discovered the enrolled agent license. That's how I found and meshed together my purpose for what I wanted to do and what I felt like God was aligning me to do the whole time. The EA credential is probably one of the best kept secrets of the IRS that taxpayers need to know about because we can advocate on behalf of the taxpayer to make sure that the IRS doesn't bulldoze over their rights, to make sure that the collection due process does happen, to ensure that the IRS doesn't overstep their bounds and go straight for the levy, go straight for the leisure. I have the opportunity to protect taxpayers every single day and to help them take advantage of their right to tax representation. And I'm so grateful for it. And if you didn't know that you can do the exact same thing I am yet fulfilling my purpose being an enrolled agent and helping fill the tax literacy gap one taxpayer at a time. Because here's the thing, I can't help everyone. I need more tax professionals like you to join me in fighting for the rights of taxpayers all over the country. I need you, if you are an enrolled agent, to walk in your authority and power as an enrolled agent and represent taxpayers. Keep the IRS within their authority, right? Help taxpayers not be taken advantage of. Help taxpayers to still realize their dreams and aspirations while yet satisfying the IRS. Will you join me in this journey? And remember, I do think that all enrolled agents should represent taxpayers, but my enrolled agent career and yours don't have to mirror each other. You get the opportunity to choose what the enrolled agent career journey looks like for you. So, in next week's episode, I'll be talking about what does an enrolled agent do and what different ways of representation you can incorporate into your career. I hope you'll join me next week for episode 3.